Good morning, one and all. Welcome to the first lecture for Module 6 of the course ME368 Marketing Management offered to the 6th semester BTech Mechanical Engineering students. I am Mathew Baby, Assistant Professor with the Department of Mechanical Engineering at Rajagiri School of Engineering and Technology. Now, the topics that we will be dealing with in Module 6 is a continuation of the topics, or is basically an add-on to the topics that we have discussed in Module number 5, where we discussed in detail the concept of marketing communication. So in Module 6, we'll be dealing with the design of message used for marketing communication, the media decisions, how to choose the correct media for communicating a message. Then we'll talk about a concept called integrated marketing communication. And finally, we'll see one of the most common tools used in marketing communication called sales promotion. So this particular module will be divided into two lectures, lecture 1 and lecture 2. And in lecture 1, we'll be dealing with designing the message. How do we design a message? What are the things to be kept in mind, or what are the things to be dealt with while designing a message? That is a topic for discussion in lecture number 1, and lecture number 2 we'll talk about the media decision. How do we choose amongst different media for marketing communication? And then we'll talk about the concepts integrated marketing communication and sales promotion. So without further ado, let's get started with lecture number 1. Now in module number 5, we have already seen marketing communication, and we have already discussed a model called the AIDA model, or the AIDA model for consumer response. It's one of the micro models for consumer response, which is used for designing messages that needs to be communicated as part of marketing. So according to the AIDA model, for the AIDA micro model for consumer response or marketing communication, a good communication is one that should attract attention, create interest, develop desire, and lead to a purchase. So a good communication process should deal with all these aspects. It should create attention of the consumers, or it should grab the attention of the consumers, create and develop an interest and desire, and finally lead to a purchase. So the AIDA model, it stands for attention, interest, desire, and action model. So that is what the AIDA micro model for consumer response states about a good communication process. And hence, ideally, a message should be such that it attracts attention, creates and develops interest and desire, and finally leads to an action, which is a purchase. And only very few messages which are communicated as part of marketing communication in actual practice do this particular thing. That says, no messages, or literally very few messages that are developed as part of marketing communication do all these functions together. So rarely do you come across a message that attracts attention, creates interest, develops desire, and leads to a purchase. Most of the messages have generally one or two of these specific purposes. Some are created to attract attention, some are created to develop interest and desire, and some are created to reinforcing a desire so as to lead to a purchase. Okay, so when putting a message together for marketing communication, there are two major decisions that has to be made. The first part is, what do we say, or what needs to be communicated? The message content has to be made very clear. The second part of the message that is very important is, how do we say it, or how to say that particular message. So that involves the message structure and its format. So while designing a message, three major aspects have to be taken into consideration. The first part is the message content, or what is the message that has been delivered. And the second and the third part are the message structure and format, which decides how we communicate that particular message. Okay, so we'll first of all deal with the part called message content. While designing a message, how do we choose the right content? So the message content, for it to be right, you are required to make three choices: the right choice of words, the right choice of appeal, and a right theme or idea. Okay, so a theme or idea is any proposition that will make the message stand out amongst other messages. You have lots of messages that have been communicated to the consumers by our rival companies, by the competitors. So it is essential that there is a theme or idea that makes your message stand out from amongst the competitors and will lead to breaking barriers that prevent the consumers from making a purchase. So there should be an idea or theme that basically affirms a particular person's desire to buy a particular product. So it clears doubts in the minds of the consumers and makes sure that they are leading or they are taking the right decision. So there are three essential things that needs to be, or there are three the right contents. For the right content, you require three choices to be made: the right choice of words, the right kind of appeal, and the correct theme or idea. Now, the first part towards ensuring the right content in the message is to choose the right words. It is very important that the marketer chooses the right words that convey the same meaning to the target audience as the marketer intended it to be communicated. So when I make a communication effort to communicate a particular message to a particular target audience, it should be communicated or it should deliver the same message as the communicator intended it to be. So just like that, the marketer has to choose the right words that convey the same meaning to the target audience as he intended it to be understood. So this is very important because same words may convey different notions or meanings in different cultures and with different cultural groups. So that is a major problem. So the same word might be interpreted or understood in different cultures or different cultural groups in a different fashion. So that is why you should understand your target audience, their culture, and choose the right words or choose words that mean what you intend. So it is generally common to choose local words to communicate to a local target market. If you are creating an advertisement that is to be aired over a large target audience with variations in culture, it should be ensured that different cultures perceive the same message in the same manner. Therefore, sometimes the message, the words, the choice of words for the same advertisement or the same marketing communication might be different for different cultural segments that are cultural segments of the target market. So it's generally common to use local words which are more clearly understood by that particular niche target market or cultural segmentation of that particular target market. The next important decision in ensuring a right message content is the right kind of appeal. Now, an appeal is basically a fashion or a way in which a message is communicated to the target. That's the most simplest way in which I can define what appeal is. So appeal is a way in which a message is communicated to the target, or alternatively it can be defined as a driving force that stimulates a consumer mindset towards a product. Now appeals are generally designed so as to create a positive image of the person who makes use of a particular product or service. And the choice of appeal, it basically usually depends upon the nature of your product. For example, if you are involved in communicating a message about serious issues or serious products which are known solutions for serious issues like cancer, if you are communicating a message about a drug that can be used for controlling cancer, then such a kind of a message requires a serious treatment than what is required for a soft drink. And the different kinds of appeals, there are three kinds of appeals. They are rational, emotional, and moral. So we'll see what the different kinds of appeals are in the next slide. So the first type of appeal is a rational or informational appeal. In this kind of an appeal, the basic objective is to push consumers to buy a particular product. And in this appeal, the emphasis is on features, benefits of use of a particular product, like safety of product, etc. The problem solving attributes, an example is mosquito repellent. It basically helps you to protect from mosquito bites. So it's basically solves your basic problem of mosquito bites. So you emphasize on features, benefits of use, problem solving attributes, etc. of a particular product, and then try and make an appeal. Okay, so appeals that fall under this particular category are the following. So rational or informational appeal, it emphasizes on a product's features, benefits of use, problem solving attributes, etc. so as to push the consumers to make a product. So that is how the appeal is made in rational or informational appeal. So some of the common appeals that fall under the rational or informational appeal category are features appeal, which is used mostly by technical products like automobiles, and it basically emphasizes on specific features of a particular product that might be unique to a particular product. For example, first in segment feature. In the case of automobiles, the first connected car, the MG Hector. That was basically one of the appeals made by that was a major appeal made by the brand MG in advertising or communicating messages about their product called the Hector. Okay, so feature appeal is generally mostly used by technical products like automobiles, and an example for a feature appeal is first in segment feature, okay, etc. So that is the appeal that falls under the rational category, where you specify your features. The second kind, or the second appeal that falls under the rational or informational appeal category, is the competitive advantage appeal, where you compare products against your competitors and bring out the advantages that your product have over your competitors. The third kind of appeal is favorable price appeal, where you say that there is a reduction in price. An example, now the same kind, say you're buying a detergent, it was priced as rupees 100 per kilogram. Now they might communicate a message that the same 1 kilogram might now be purchased as rupees 90. So that is a kind of appeal where it tries to project the favorable price aspect of their particular product, where they have reduced the prices of the products for the same quantity. So that is an appeal called favorable price appeal, where they communicate reduction in prices. Then another appeal is a news appeal. An example for a news appeal is the case of a product where the news of Tata Nexon being the first 5-star safety rated car from India. So that particular news itself is an appeal, and that basically projects that particular car, when you use it, it gives you a benefit that you are safe in that particular car. Okay, so that particular feature or benefit of use is brought out through a news, where a particular product has been rated such and such for such and such tests. Okay, so that is an appeal called a news appeal. And the next kind of appeal is a product popularity appeal. Okay, where they try and project the popularity of the product amongst consumers, so that they can convince convince their potential consumers. Okay, an example is the highest selling car in its class, a claim by a manufacturer that this is the highest selling car in its class. Another one is car of the year award. So that is an award that can also fall under the news appeal, where a particular car has been awarded the best car of the year for that particular year. So product popularity, news appeal, favorable price appeal, competitive advantage appeal, features appeal, okay, etc. They all fall under the rational or informational appeal, where the message that is communicated, it contains informational or a rational information that basically helps consumers cement their buying decision. Okay, so some of the other appeals that can be used in this category include the high quality, where you can talk about the quality, low price, long life, performance, economy, scarcity, etc. So those kinds of appeals can also be used, or those kinds of appeals are also fall under the rational or informational appeal. The second kind of appeal is the emotional appeal, which is related to an individual's psychological and social needs for purchasing certain products or services. So here, the appeal about or the message about a particular product is associated or linked with certain emotions. Okay, and that is how these messages are basically conveyed, with a certain amount of emotion attached to that particular message. So such kinds of appeals, which are related to an individual psychological and social needs, okay, and basically plays with the emotion, or basically toys with the emotion of a customer, potential customer. Such kinds of appeals are referred to as emotional appeals. So some of the common appeals that fall under emotional appeal include positive emotional appeal, where you use positive emotions like pride, joy, love, etc. Now, this is a kind of appeal that is generally used for products like baby products. Okay, if you see the advertisements of baby products, it's very clear that um, they convey a message that by using this particular product, baby product, for example, a baby powder by a particular brand, you are basically expressing how much you love your baby. So yeah, they are reinforcing the message about a particular product by associating that particular message with a positive emotion. Such kinds of appeals are called as positive emotional appeals. There is another different kind of appeal which basically uses negative emotions to make an appeal. Okay, so they use fear, guilt, and shame to get people to stop doing things they should not. Okay, so for example, take the case of Nicotex gums. Now these are basically put forth as a solution to smokers. So when they convey a message about this particular product, they use a negative emotional appeal, where they instill fear, or they use fear as basically the common emotion. Okay, take the case of the Nicotex gums, smokers, the effects that smoking has on the smokers and their families. That is what is basically portrayed in the advertisement for Nicotex gums. So playing with the fear of a particular person who's involved in smoking, losing his life and affecting the life of his dependents. That fear is used so that people stop smoking, and they use certain alternatives to get over these smoking habits. So when you use negative emotions like fear, guilt, or shame to get people to stop doing things and rather choose alternatives which do not have these drawbacks, okay, so such kinds of appeals are generally called negative emotional appeals. Then there is an use of fear as an appeal agent. You're using the emotion called fear. For example, it is generally used by products like life insurance, or cleaning agents like Harpic, etc. You can clearly see that. Take the case of the bathroom cleaning agent called Harpic. The advertisement clearly shows germs that multiply in your toilets after a particular use. So this is potentially uh, portrayed as a source of diseases that your family members can get, and they convey that by using their product you can get rid of this anxiety or fear of getting a particular disease. So they are associating the message, or they are associating their product with a particular emotion called fear. Okay, so the next kind of appeal is anxiety appeal, which uses situational anxiety as a trigger. For example, take the case of deodorants, okay, pension plan, all those kinds of products use this particular anxiety based emotional appeal, where situational anxiety, like having a bad order. Okay, another example would be the case of a toothpaste. Okay, toothpaste can use both anxiety and fear as a tool for emotional appeal. Take the case of fear of plaques, uh, decayed tooth, sensitivity, pain all of a sudden. So such kinds of fear can be used as a stimulant so that your product might be sold. Okay, another is a case of anxiety of bad breath. Okay, that is where a toothpaste uses anxiety of a person having a bad breath in a situation that he should not. For example, a person attending an interview, when he talks to the interviewer, he should not have bad breath. So using that particular anxiety, okay, a situational anxiety as a trigger, they communicate messages about products and their benefits. So such kinds of appeals are referred to as emotional appeals. Even humor might be an emotion that can be used to create an appeal for a product. So the aspects about a particular product are not communicated directly. Okay, just in the case of a rational or informational appeal, where the features, the benefits, okay, etc., are conveyed directly to the consumers through the message. Here you are making use of certain emotions to reinforce a message, and you associate that particular product with a particular kind of uh, benefit by you making use of certain emotions being associated with them. So such kinds of appeals are called as emotional appeals. So some of the common examples are positive emotional appeals, negative emotional appeals, using fear as an emotional appeal, anxiety, humor, etc. Okay, so take the case of the figure that is shown over here. You can see two examples over here, where the first case you see on the bottom left, you see the case of Coca-Cola, and they associate their product with happiness. So they're using a positive emotion. You're associating a positive emotion, and they're communicating the message using a positive emotion. So they are using an emotional appeal. Take the case of the product on the right. Okay, so they take the case of a hair product that once used before and after, the results are clearly shown. So they might use fear or anxiety of a particular person to get them to use that particular product, so that they are they can be relieved of that particular anxiety of particular fear. Okay, so you can see on the right a figure of a lion, okay, with its hair that is frizzy, and after the use of the product they say that the lion's hair is all straightened up. So that they are showing this particular benefit by associating it with a fear or anxiety. Okay, so such kinds of appeals are called as emotional appeals. The third kind of appeal is a moral appeal, and this is an appeal that is directed at the consumer's moral sense of what is right and what is wrong. Okay, so here the message that you're trying to communicate basically wants a consumer to make a choice based upon his morality, of what is right and what is wrong, or what he understands to be right and what he understands is not right. So this is generally used to garner support for social and ethical causes in most cases. But a moral appeal may also be used when you are communicating messages about a company's products or services. Okay, so different kinds of moral appeals include social awakening and justice, ones that are directed at cleaner and safer environment, okay, ones that communicate messages about prohibition of drugs, ones that are related to adult literacy, consumer rights and awareness, anti-smuggling and hoarding, etc. So as you can see here, you have two images in this particular slide that basically give you examples of how moral appeal is used. So take the case of the image here, Jago Grahak Jago. That is the textual content in that particular image over there. So the message that is being conveyed is a message that is concerned, or that is basically concerned with consumer rights and consumer awareness. Okay. Similarly, take the case of the advertisement for the car by Toyota called the Toyota Mirai, which is basically a hydrogen fuel car. So it clearly states in the advertisement that its only emission is basically water, and it is basically trying to appeal towards the moral side of the consumer, which generally wants all people to go for systems that are much more cleaner, much more safer, and much more kinder to the environment. Okay, so this particular product, the Toyota Mirai, they're trying to convey a message that this is much more safer and cleaner to the environment because its only emission is water. So it basically tries and appeals to the moral side of consumers to choose what is right. So it basically uses, or that it's directed at the consumer's moral sense of what is right and what is not, for them to communicate the message about that particular product. Okay, such kinds of appeals are called as moral appeals. So the three kinds of appeals are rational and informational appeals, emotional appeals, and moral appeals. So this is the second part of creating the right message content. So the first one was choosing the right text, okay, or the right kind of words. The second part is choosing the right appeal. The third part is choosing the right kind of choosing the right idea or choosing the right theme. So other than these three kinds of appeals, there are some common other kinds of appeals that are commonly used. They are a reminder appeal. So where messages are basically given as reminders. For example, advance tax payments. You commonly come across these advertisements in your television. Then a sale day. Okay, where you, for example, if you are a subscriber or a person using an online shopping site like Amazon, their flash sale dates, their Amazon sale dates, example the Black Friday sale, that is, which is commonly very common in the US. So once you have messages that remind people about such kinds of deadlines, such kinds of dates, etc., such kinds of appeals are called as reminder appeal. Okay, then there are teaser appeals, which are basically used to build curiosity during a new product launch. Okay, so such kinds of appeals are called as teaser appeals. Then there are musical appeals, where you link a particular, you associate a particular tone with a particular brand. For example, Airtel, its ringtone is iconic. Another example is a case of Nokia. Its ringtone is very iconic. So you're using a particular music to appeal about a particular product. And the last kind is a transformational appeal, which makes usage of experience better, makes usage experience better. Those kinds of appeals which say that this product or this kind of service will make your usage experience much better than the products that you're currently using. So such kinds of appeals are called as transformation appeals, which say that it will transform the way you see and use a particular kind of product. An example is a case where you see Amway communicating messages about their products, saying that they are the best cleaning products and they give you much better experience than any other cleaning products offered by any other company. So they are saying that using this particular product will give you a much better usage experience than any other products that they have used. So they are appealing about a transformation in their usage experience. So there are these other kinds of appeals also which are commonly seen. So the different kinds of appeals include rational or informational appeal, emotional appeal, moral appeal, then other kinds of appeals like reminder appeal, teaser appeal, musical appeal, and transformation appeal. Okay. Now that we have seen what the right message content is, the right message content is made up of the right choice of words, the right theme or idea, and the right kind of appeal. The kind of appeal depending upon the nature of the product. So since we have seen what the message content is made up of, now we will go on to the next part of designing the message, that is designing the message structure. Now the message structure is basically the body of the message, and while designing the message structure, the communicator or the marketer has to handle three message structure issues. Okay, the first issue he has to handle is whether to draw conclusion or leave it to the audience. Once he makes a communication, or once he develops a message content and he develops a body for the message structure, he has to decide whether he should draw conclusions or leave it to the audience to draw conclusions. An example where in most cases you see that the message usually draws conclusions, where it raises the issues and provides the solutions as well. An example would be the case of an ad by Surf Excel. So it's a cloth cleaning detergent. So they raise the issue of stains that come up with different kinds of use, and they provide the solution as well, where they provide a product which can remove those stains. So such an approach is referred to as drawing conclusions. So wherever the message raises the issue and provides a solution as well, such a situation or such a condition is referred to as drawn conclusions. So it's generally better for the message structure to draw conclusions rather than leave it to the audience, because when you leave it to the audience, different people might interpret that particular message differently. So in most cases, it's better to draw conclusions. The second issue that the communicator must handle when designing the message structure is whether to use a one-sided argument or a two-sided argument. A one-sided argument is one that mentions only the product's strengths, and a two-sided argument is one that highlights its strengths as well as weaknesses. Okay, so he has to decide, once he knows what the content is, once he designs the message structure, he has to decide whether he should use a one-sided argument where he mentions strengths of the products only, or he should use a two-sided argument. So two-sided argument is generally used in examples like used in cases like mutual fund investments, where they clearly state the risk involved in investing in mutual funds. Okay, so two-sided arguments are generally used when the target is well educated or informed. So when your target is well educated or informed about the product, the different choices that he has, it is better to provide a two-sided argument which highlights his weakness as well as strengths. And the last issue when designing a message structure is the order of presentation. Whether to present the strongest arguments first or last. Okay, so generally research suggests that the messages should start with and end with strong positives, which is because it is said that the first and the last things that are said are mostly remembered then. So what comes in between a message is generally left out. For example, if an advertisement, what happens at the start and what is a kind of message that is delivered at the end is what really sticks with the customer. So research generally suggests that the message, when you design the message structure, it should start and end with strong positives. And this is because what is said first and last is usually remembered well. So while designing the message structure, the communicator has to handle these three issues. He has to decide whether to draw conclusions or leave it to the audience. He should decide whether to use a one-sided argument or a two-sided argument. That depends upon, and the choice here depends purely upon the kind of target audience, the nature of target audience, and finally he has to decide upon the order of presentation, whether to present the strongest arguments first or last. Okay, so research, as I told you, suggests generally the message should start and end with strong positives because it's the start and the end that usually people remember the most. So that is all about message structure. So when designing a message, the first aspect was to design the correct message content, where we talked about choosing the right words, the right kind of appeal, and the right theme. And the second part was designing the message structure, where you decide upon the body and decide upon three major issues. Okay. The next aspect of designing a message is your decision on the message format. Okay, so the message format is basically the creative part of marketing communication. So we'll see more about my message format in the next slide. Now, once we have decided upon what the message format is, the message content and the message structure is, the next part is to design the message format. And this is the creative part of marketing communication. So even though the message content and the message structures between different marketing communication tools used by different companies are the same, what differentiates one message from another is the message format. So this is the most creative part of marketing communication, and this is what generally helps a company differentiate its message from the rest. So in messages that use the print media, in print advertisements, the message format includes or involves decisions like what is a headline or the tagline, or what is the main content of that particular print ad, the tagline. Okay, what is the kind of text, its font, its colors, and what will be the kind of visuals that will be used in that particular print ad. So your choice or decision on the headline, the text fonts, the text, the color, the visuals used, that is what differentiates your message from the rest. There might be other similar messages by other companies which are similar in content and similar in their structure. But these messages can be differentiated by their format. So as I told you, message format is basically the creative part of marketing communication. So in print advertisements, it involves decisions like headline, text, the colors, the use of visuals, etc. When you're using radio as a media for communication, then here the message format involves decision of the correct content, correct kind of words. A good voice with a good modulation is what helps you differentiate. So if you hear advertisements over the radio, or if you hear audio advertisements, what strikes a consumer is a good voice and a good modulation, or a voice modulation that basically attracts his attention. Okay. Similarly, if you're using television as a media for transferring the message, then what is important as message format is a script, the presentation style, as well as a presenter. That is what differentiates television, messages that are transferred through television. So the use of the correct script, the presentation style, the presenter. Okay, so some of these might strike the consumers, and that is what garners attention. So similarly, the use of visuals and proper backgrounds and background music wherever applicable is also part of the message format. So I once again repeat, the message format is basically the creative part of marketing communication, and this is one of the major differentiating factors which differentiates different messages by different companies. So even though messages are similar in their content and in their structure, they can be differentiated by using different formats. So in print advertisements, the format include decisions like headline, the text fonts, the colors, the visuals, etc. In radio, it's the use of the correct voice with the correct modulation. And in television, it's all about the visuals, the background music, the script, the presenter, and his presentation style. So now that we have seen the three major aspects in designing a good message, that is designing a good message content, designing the good message structure and a good message format. Once you have done that, there are certain general guidelines which help you design a good message. So these are considerations that needs to be taken into consideration, or these are the factors that needs to be taken into consideration while designing a message. So some of the common guidelines for a good message while designing a message is: message must have practical value to the target audience. For example, pension schemes, they are targeted at working population, not the students. So if we are communicating a message to a particular target audience, say students, that particular message should have some practical use or value to that particular target audience. So the message should have practical value to the target audience. That's the first guideline. The second guideline while designing a good message is it must garner or create interest. Then the third factor guideline is it should communicate new information about the product or a service. The fourth guideline is a message must reinforce or justify a recent purchase decision. So it should be a message, a good message should be one that basically reinforces a person's decision to make a purchase. And finally, a message should be sensitive and comply with the codes of practices established. Okay, it should be sensitive to the target audience and the sensitive and comply also with the codes and practices or codes of practices established in the particular firm, or as general codes of practice, whatever is established. Your message content, its format, its structure should be sensitive and comply with these codes that are established. Okay, so these are the guidelines for a good message. So the last important thing while designing a message or communicating a message is the message source. The message source is basically the source or person that communicates the message, and this is of very great importance. Now the person or the source from which the message, through which the message is communicated, should be a credible source, a person who is believable. And generally a person who is credible is basically a person who is considered to be benefited by the product or the service. So if we have testimonials by people who are benefited by the products while communicating messages about the product through advertisements, whether it be print advertising, television advertising, whatever that media might be, once it's communicated by a person who is actually a beneficiary of using that particular product, then that particular message source becomes very credible. So it's very important that whenever you communicate a message, the message source or the person through which you're communicating a message is basically a credible person. For example, the case of shampoo. Now when you're advertising the case of shampoos or hair products, the person who is basically present or who basically presents the ad should be one with very good hair, okay, or very long and good hair. So that is what you see in the advertisement that is shown here, the advertisements for hair products by Dove. Okay, so you can see that when they are creating a message for their hair products line, they use the image of a lady who has very good hair. So that makes it more convincing. So in mostly you can see that the products of Dove, where they use television advertising, they use feedbacks or testimonials by people who have been benefited to assert that this particular product is beneficial to the consumer. So the message source is basically a person who basically affirms and makes it clear to the consumer that there is a benefit, and it should be communicated through a person who is basically considered to be a credible person. So the credible source can either be celebrities or it can be common people. So you can see the case of advertising of the bath soaps by Lux, okay, bathing soaps by Lux. You can see that it is advertised by the person, or the advertising is carried out through Katrina Kaif as basically being a brand ambassador. So that itself is basically a convincing factor for the consumer. Okay. Similarly, the case of dentists prescribing certain kinds of toothbrushes, toothpaste, etc. You have mostly seen the advertisements for Sensodyne, and the tagline itself says the number one brand recommended by dentists. Okay. Similarly, you can see an advertisement for the toothbrush by Oral-B. So you can see that this particular ad contains the figure of a dentist or what looks like to be a dentist. So that makes it more credible. Okay, and a dentist is basically a person who's an authority over oral hygiene. So once a dentist says that this is the right kind of toothpaste or the right kind of brush to be used, things become much more clear. So generally the message, it should be communicated through a credible person, and the credible person can be a celebrity, and celebrities, when you use a celebrity as a credible person, it generally gets and holds attention much better than when you're using a common man as a credible person. Okay, so this is the last aspect of designing a good message, the message source. So while designing a message, you should keep in mind the message content, the message structure, the message format, and the message source. With this, we conclude lecture number 1 for module number 6. Thank you.